Greetings, boys and girls and ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my South of Midnight review. South of Midnight came out earlier this year, and I said I was going to make a review on it earlier, but I stopped playing the game, and I didn't really get into it until I realized I was going to make a review on it. So I got around to making this darn review once and for all. So let me know how you guys like this. It's shorter than my last Is It Fun review. Sort of expedited the process. So enjoy. Let me know what you guys think.
You best find somewhere to pack them.
And pack them light. Yeah, I know.
What'd you say?
I said, and pack them light.
Pack a bag, then pack it light. Hey, pack your bags, then pack them light.
South of Midnight's story is overall good. You play as Hazel, a young track star who is prepping to go to college. Hazel and her mother has this huge fight, and Hazel's looking like a legitimate terrible teen outright. Quickly after, your mother gets swept away by this huge storm, and now it's up to Hazel to find her mother. The journey is filled with magical, mystical powers and creatures. Hazel, throughout this adventure, sows people's family's troubles one at a time, slowly mending her own as visions from her mother give her perspective that inspires her. This is a narrative-heavy game, so if the story is not up to the player's liking, then they may not get far into it. While I like the story itself, the execution is less to be desired, in my opinion. Writing is not my cup of tea. Hazel refuses to stop talking throughout the entirety of the game. Seemingly everything the player does in the game is responded with some obvious observation, which feels the writers put it there just in case the player may be blind.
God, she's always been so passive-aggressive. What the hell does that mean? Can Bunny see strands too? Huh? I wonder what happened. Feels sad.
The humor in this game also didn't really land on me at all whatsoever throughout the whole 11-hour experience. If anyone's seen sort of a modern film, like a Marvel film perhaps in the last 5 years, then they will sort of know how the vibe and of the story will go. But at least a Marvel film is able to strike, some jokes out of me from here and there, getting some laughs. Another huge issue for me with this game is the tone. Hazel swears a lot, but everything about this game feels as though it's made for a younger audience. So having an MC that swears frequently in this game is completely out of place. And there's like little to no aura around Hazel, and it just doesn't feel well at all.
Holy shit. What just happened?
Wait! Hey! No! Asshole!
That was a cute pig. Ah, shit. Damn fool thing. Rest in peace.
I absolutely love Hazel's character design, especially mid-game while she obtains her grandmother's drip. Visually, this game is magnificent, taking inspiration from the immensely influential Into the Spider-Verse with the off-frame animation style. South of Midnight also adds on flair with adding claymation aesthetic to its animation, emulating that stop claymation film style. The game is divided into chapters. In these chapters, the player will follow a game design which is very formulaic and uniform. South of Midnight is a linear adventure game akin to something like Quantum Break. In each chapter, there will be opening cutscenes followed by light platforming and light puzzle solving, and then combat, and then occasionally a boss. Combat is only designated in set combat zones, always accompanied by a domain of stigma around it. This means that outside of these combat zones, there's nothing really to worry about other than platforming. Then after you repeat this formula like 3 times, the player fights the boss, then the next chapter starts. This game's design is very simple and safe and conservative that alleviates any sense of tension from the gameplay. Everything outside of the gameplay feels good to great, minus the writing and tone. The game's movement system is fluid and fun. Movement inputs are responsive, giving the player a lot of control over Hazel. Platforming in this game is the most consistent joy in playing South of Midnight. Combat is painfully average at best. The lock-on system is a liability and should not be used at all. I have no idea whose idea was to keep this system in the game that gives you negative value on the level that it gives you. Free camera is the move when fighting on the battlefield because it gives you way more control to see everything. The combat itself, early game, really consists of the player mashing the attack button a bunch to defeat enemies. Throughout the game, upgrades and new abilities will be found to spice things up in combat. Early game combat is simply not that fun at all. It's only until the end of the game where combat starts to feel a bit more intuitive, making the player think about which tool in the toolbox is best used at whatever time against certain enemies.
Where are y'all coming from?
The only true enemy in this game is going to be the Ravengers. These are going to be the first type of enemy that the player is going to be introduced to in the game. These are going to be consistently the hardest enemies in the game. Once the player is able to handle these guys with ease, then that player will technically basically be a master of the combat system. When the player damages this enemy, they will let out a screech that sort of reminds me of Prince of Persia: Evil Within. Insert audio cue here. The thing that makes this enemy so terrifying is that they have this attack that's able to hit you no matter where the player is standing in the arena. This attack is accompanied by an audio cue, which is your only signal, and a slight wind-up time that essentially tells the player to dodge or take damage. The Overseer is the only other notable enemy that I feel needs to be mentioned. This enemy is going to be your traditional gatekeeping shield booster type enemy that will prevent all damage for one of its allies as long as it lives. Now, not every chapter has a boss. Some of it has a pseudo boss thing, a little objective. Some of it is just no objective at all. But there are really 4 main traditional boss fights. The first one is going to be against Two-Toe Tom.
Go, you big bastard!
This albino alligator is going to be a simple boss to fight. You're just going to dodge his attacks and ring this bell that's going to leave him vulnerable for some of your attacks. And then Huggin' Molly is another boss that you're going to face. It's going to be basically like fighting Two-Toe Tom, but with some platforming sections to break up each phase of the fight. Now, my favorite was Rougarou. Rougarou, that's how the song is. This character was sort of your mom's ex-lover, and he's trying to deal with this inner conflict, and when he's not able to deal with this conflict, he shapeshifts to this werewolf owl, sort of like on some Naruto-ish. It's this character is one of my favorite characters, I think, in the game, and it's the best boss fight in the game. It's one of the more interesting fights, like mechanically, in the game. In the whole game, like it was such a good fight. It's a traditional sort of action, third-person action fight that isn't like some wait for this BS thing so then you can do some damage. No, all your damage is being dealt to this guy. He's gonna do this crazy attacks. You're gonna have to dodge, counter, use your abilities in multiple different ways. This was the best fight. And then the final fight of the game is going to be Kushma. This fight was just a gauntlet of all the enemies in the game. And good luck to fighting all the enemies in the game. And then dodging some of his main attacks and then fighting him. Weapons in this game are going to consist of these weaving tools that harness the magic that Hazel has inherited. Your standard attack will be a light combo that will be used 99% of the combat in this game. Holding the attack button will release an AoE type attack that's able to reach long range. This heavy AoE attack is one that I found myself using the least because it requires Hazel to stand static for a period of time, which is not something you want to do in this game. You're going to get hit if you're still. There's a weave ability that when the player uses on an enemy, that enemy will become vulnerable to damage, doing double damage essentially. This ability you're going to be wanting to use as frequently as possible. Then we have the Strand Push. This Strand Push is going to be the weakest tool in your toolbox other than this game's lock-on system. This is going to push people away, enemies away, interrupting their attacks and doing some small damage. When this ability is fully upgraded, though, you're able to get an instant recharge of this ability if you hit more than 2 people, but even that ability upgrade doesn't really justify using this as much. Strand Pull, on the other end, Strand Pull is going to be sort of your go-to offensive ability that the player can use to really reel in baddies to deliver a good amount of damage to them. And you can also use this to pull in baddies if they're too big. Crouton, though, your stuffed companion, is going to be clutch because Crouton, when used on an enemy, will turn the enemy into a friendly, attacking other enemies as long as this ability is active. After a short period of time, the enemy will go back to being a baddie, but I don't know how long exactly. It's like at least 30 seconds, 45 seconds where you got another person. So it's essentially uses on the Ravager enemy, so you don't have to worry about them instantly dashing and damaging you. South of Midnight features some fun and fluid platforming. Platforming is hands down the most exciting part of the gameplay overall. Hazel in base without any weaving magic or boosts is a track star, giving the player ability to utilize her speed and agility. Sprinting in this game feels perfect, not too fast or not too slow. Hazel's weaving powers is going to give her access to some standard 3D platforming abilities such as a double jump, a quick dash, air glide, and even wall running. Other abilities need to be used to interact with objects in the level to navigate the landscape. Hazel's Strand Push and Pull abilities are used to move things like crates or wheelbarrows so she can jump and access higher ground. Strand Pool will have these set apparitions that Hazel latches onto, giving her sort of a grappling hook ability. Strand Push is going to be able to break through barricades that will be highlighted. Weave is going to make pre-existing objects or structures appear from the past to the present for platforming. One of the more interesting parts of the platforming and free space roaming adventure seeking is going to be your companion Crouton. When Crouton is used outside of combat, you can throw this little guy so that you can access these tight little small spaces, usually used to open other sections of the level that Hazel isn't able to access. In these little sections, Crouton will be playable, and you can platform through little sections that will have these spikes that poke out and puncture Crouton. Upgrade system in this game is nothing to write home about at all. These skill trees are more like skill branches because there's not much deviating from the origin. The main ability that really you're going to want to upgrade in these skill trees is going to be ability that makes all of your combat abilities tied to, and some combos tied to making the enemies vulnerable, like your weave ability. This is going to be the best upgrade in the skill tree, so everything else is sort of just a nice little addition. South of Midnight's level variety and level design is sort of your run-of-the-mill stuff. There are some nice settings, like the city in the beginning, sort of the later game settings where it starts getting freaky and odd and weird. But most of all, it sort of feels like you're kind of running around most of the same places until end game. And the level design, again, is very formulaic. Now, if I had to grade this game on the sound design and the soundtrack, I would have to give it a 10 out of 10. There are music in this game, jazzy, bluegrassy, folk music that honestly some of this stuff is hit or miss, but when playing this game, it makes me feel like I'm playing a musical. Sometimes there's some choir chorus that sort of reflects what's going on with these bosses and whatnot, and the characters, the voice acting it's peak stuff. There are some peak stuff in this game, but I just wish the game had a better supporting cast around the soundtrack.
Kuzma master, power faster, no one comes close to him.
South of Midnight succeeds at being a good game that doesn't really do much to push the genre forward. The story is good, but is held back by its annoying writing and conflicting tone. Platforming is a blast, and would honestly rather play a game built solely around it, because this game's combat is the weakest link of the gameplay. If any of this seems intriguing to you, then you may not mind playing the game. Otherwise, you might be better off watching a compilation of all the cutscenes.